Welcome to Tangi's Tapestry, where spirituality, law, motherhood, and relationships weave into a rich and meaningful discussion. I'm your host, Tangi, a mother, daughter, sister, friend, and an avid entrepreneur. Join me as I share my personal journey, explore faith-based discussions, and offer valuable legal insights. Each episode is designed to inspire, empower, and connect with individuals on their unique path. So let's dive into today's topic and embark on this journey together. Hey, welcome back to another episode of Tangi's Tapestry. I'm your host, Tangi, and today we are diving into one of the most challenging topics I think many parents have to deal with, and that is co-parenting with a narcissist. So, episode 8, and I can't believe we're in episode 8, you guys, already for season 2. But this episode is about going from chaos to calm. And hopefully, this episode will help you master co parenting with a narcissist because I'm going to give you some tips that I think are helpful. But before I do that, I want to remind you that the information that I share in this podcast is for educational, informational purposes only. It does not create any attorney-client relationship, nor does it constitute any legal advice. And if you do need specific legal questions answered, or you have concerns about your own personal legal matters, I would say, especially if family law related or whatever, make sure to reach out and consult with an attorney that's in your state. So I just wanted to give that little disclaimer before I start the conversation today. But I want to give you my scripture for this conversation. So it kind of sets the tone for what we're going to talk about. But the scripture that I will be reading from is found in Matthew 5:44. And this is Jesus speaking, okay, you guys? So if, Jesus is telling us to do something, we probably should listen, even if we don't really want to listen. But this scripture says, but I say, love your enemies. Whew, that right there, just love your enemies. And pray for those who persecute you. So I know that this verse can be especially challenging when you're dealing with a individual who you have to co-parent with, and they have narcissistic behaviors. And I will say, loving those who hurt us, or who challenge us, or who get on our nerves, or who stresses us out, can be very tough. But it's also a reminder that we are called to rise above the chaos and continue with love, even when it feels impossible. So I'm going to be sharing, like I said, 5 tips with you today about co-parenting. And I think, co-parenting with a narcissist, it can feel like a never-ending battle. And if you have a young child and you're dealing with a narcissist, it definitely feels like a never-ending battle because you have until they're 18, to go before you can rid yourself of the stress that comes along with this type of behavior that you encounter. And I think with narcissists, they often lack empathy, and they have a significant need to control everything, and they make it very difficult to cooperate with them, to be able to co-parent, to make decisions. It can be very draining on you physically, mentally, spiritually, all of the above. And they have a very manipulative behavior. So it also, feels like no matter what you do, it's never enough. And oftentimes you end up at the end of the conversation feeling like, what did I do wrong? Did I say something wrong? You're questioning yourself. Like, am I the problem? And so it it can be very difficult. But the good news is you can protect your peace while still fulfilling your role as a parent. And so, like I said, I know it can be tough. I've been in similar situations. Not to put all my business out there or anything, but I know what it's like to deal with a individual who has narcissistic behaviors, and um, it is difficult. It's tough, but you do have power to take control over your emotions and your reactions, and it's something that takes it takes repetitive like what's the word that I'm looking for here? It takes you having to continue, like, to keep doing the same thing to make sure that you're learning how to deal with someone who has narcissistic behavior. So the tips that I'm giving you are tips that you have to continue to practice. That's the word I was looking for. You have to keep practicing how to control your emotions, because it can be easy to just go down that rabbit hole with that person and get emotionally engaged with them and upset and frustrated, which just makes it 10 times more worse when you're dealing with someone who has those narcissistic behaviors. So, the 5 tips that I want to talk with you today, hopefully, you can use them. I know they have helped me, and I'm still a work in progress, if I'm being honest. But the first tip is set firm boundaries. Okay. So, a narcissist will test your limits, and trust me, they will test your limits to the point of no return. But it's very crucial to set clear, firm boundaries. So that means, communicate your expectations with the co-parent, and don't waver on those expectations or those boundaries that you set. So you want to stick to your boundaries and avoid getting emotionally dragged into their manipulative games, because once they get you upset and all riled up, oh boy, are they having a field day and they are loving it. So you want to make sure that you are keeping your emotions intact. And I know that's easier said than done, but if you continue to practice setting those boundaries and not having your emotions get all worked up, then you are going to be good to go. Tip number 2, keep the communication brief and focused. So, when you're communicating with the other parent who has these narcissistic behaviors, you want to keep it short. You want to kind of treat them like you're dealing with someone on a business level, and you want to keep the conversation focused solely on the child. So, sorry, y'all, my alarm went off and I am not stopping to record this again. Okay. So, um, but as I was saying, you want to keep it short, business-like, and focus solely on the child. So you want to make sure that you are avoiding like personal discussions. You definitely, like I said, don't want to get into that emotional territory, because when they reel you into there, it's game over. And they will try to provoke you to go there, but you want to just make sure you just stay focused on what is at hand and what they're talking about and what they're trying to do. So, for example, if they are trying to get you to, terminate child support because they don't want to pay the child support, and they're trying to find ways to make it seem like you're the reason why they can't do X, Y, and Z because their child support issues or whatever. You want to definitely just stay focused, keep it professional. Like, I know it sounds weird to say keep it professional with your, child's mother or father. Um, but you do have to do that. You have to keep it that way so that you know that you don't get emotionally charged, or um you don't start talking about personal stuff, about, what they did in the past and all these things. You just want to avoid all of that and just stay focused on the conversation and tell them why you think that, you know, child support is needed and blah 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 blah. But just keep it very professional. Okay. So communication, brief and short, brief and focused. The tip number three that I want to tell you about is called the gray rock method. Now, I know that sounds kind of weird, but it is a strategy that works well. Um, and it's basically when you become like a boring person and you become very boring. Now, if you are someone fly like me, I'm just kidding. But if you have a bubbly personality and you love to talk and all of that stuff, you definitely um, might struggle with using the gray rock method, but it can be helpful because you're basically keeping the conversation neutral, short, and unemotional. So you're not really giving them anything to react to. So you're just, keeping this conversation like dull and boring. So um yeah, try that. It doesn't that one probably doesn't work so well for me, but it is worth trying it in practice, okay? And then focus on your child's best interest. So that's tip number 4. Focus on your child's best interest. So no matter how challenging your co-parenting situation is, you want to stay focused on your child's best interest. And that is what the courts look at anyways. So you definitely want to take all of your emotions out of it. And I know this is key because emotions are what are is the emotional aspect of dealing with a narcissist is what keeps them like just I don't know, thriving and feeling like they're like in some kind of like control or power or whatever when they can get you emotionally upset, right? So that's why I mention emotions a lot in when dealing with a narcissist, because that's really what it all tends to focus on. They want you to get upset and mad and start thinking like what did you do? It's just crazy how it works. But you want to put aside your emotional reactions and make the decisions based on what you think will provide stability and love for your child. So you just want to focus on what's in the best interest for your child and not what's in the best interest for you, because what's in the best interest for you would be to cut all communications off with the other parent, block them, um, you know, even probably go off on them. That would be you would be starting to talk about all this other stuff, the things that they're not doing, the things, all of these things. That would be what's in the best interest for you, but you don't want to do that. You want to focus on what's in the best interest for your child. So just keep the conversation focused on that. And then tip number 5, the last tip, which I think is a really good one, is to lean on your support system. um Dealing with a narcissist can be emotionally draining, as I mentioned early on. So you want to make sure that you have a support system that you can lean on, whether it be your family, a friend, or even a professional like therapy, because Lord knows that narcissists will have you at the therapist really trying to make sure that you keep your sanity. Okay. So you definitely want to have the support system in place, and you don't want to go to your family and friends all the time and burden them with all of the drama that you're probably dealing with the other parent. So I will say that the first thing you probably should do is lean into God before even going to your family and your friends and seeking His guidance, His strength, His asking Him for peace and clarity and wisdom on how to interact with the other parent who has these narcissistic behaviors before you even turn to your family and friends. So first go to God and then family, friends, and or professionals. Okay. And just know that you're not in this alone. And it's good to surround yourself with people who are going to uplift you and remind you that you're doing a great job as a parent, and that you're going to get this, and this too shall pass. So um those are the tips, right? So tip the tips were set firm boundaries, keep communication brief and focused, use the gray rock method. Again, that's keeping your conversations very boring, like neutral, short, and unemotional. Focus on your child's best interest, like what's in the best interest of the child, like focus on those kind of conversations. And then lean into that support system, God, family, friends, and or professionals. So to wrap up today's episode, remember setting boundaries with a narcissist is tough. Um, but it's necessary for your peace and your child's well-being just to set those boundaries. And it won't always be easy. I'm not going to sit here and lie to you and tell you like just pray it away because sometimes prayer doesn't always work. And like sometimes in the past, I think I have prayed and then I've had the human moment where I had to pray after I had my human moment and went off on the individual. But I think once you learn to take control of your reactions, it's going to help you to, excuse me, protect your emotional space. Okay. So again, keeping your emotions intact is the biggest takeaway from this. Don't get emotional. Don't get upset. Don't cuss them out, y'all. Don't cuss them out. Okay, I'm gonna tell you right now, don't cuss them out because it ain't gonna work. Okay, and I know that is not proper English, but it's not going to make anything better if you go in on them. Okay, it's just going to make it worse because that's what they want. They want you to be upset. They want you to get mad. They want you to feel angry and frustrated and go off on them. They love that. They thrive on that, right? So you don't want to do that. And while it's, difficult again to deal with someone who is a narcissist or has those tendencies to be, you know, controlling and manipulative, remember the scripture from Matthew 5:44 that says, love your enemies. Now, granted, this doesn't mean tolerate mistreatment, but it just means to keep your peace and not let the narcissist take away your joy or your sense of self. Okay. So, try to love them beyond the drama and learn to deal with them using those 5 tips. Okay. And then maybe you can just cuss them out in your head. But if you found this episode helpful, please share it with someone who might be struggling with a similar situation. Also, you can subscribe to Tangi's Tapestry so you don't miss out on future episodes. And if you need legal support with co-parenting or custody issues or even creating legal agreements, feel free to reach out to me at Turner Legal Solutions. I am here to help. That is if you live in DC or Maryland, and that is where I'm licensed. So, until next time, take care of yourself, set those boundaries, and protect your peace. Have a blessed week, you guys. Thank you for joining me on this journey through Tangi's Tapestry. I hope you enjoyed this week's episode. Remember, new episodes drop every second and fourth Monday, so be sure to subscribe and stay tuned for more heartfelt discussions, personal stories, and valuable legal insight. If you enjoyed this episode, please consider sharing it with your family, friends, and followers. Your support means the world to me as I strive to create meaningful content that inspires and empowers. Well, until next time, take care and remember to weave your own unique story into the tapestry of life. See you on the next episode of Tangi's Tapestry.